Right. Hello and welcome everyone to the City of Santa Maria's Short Range Transit Plan Addendum Update for 2021. My name is Gamaliel Anguiano. I'm Transit Manager for the City of Santa Maria. I'm joined by a few of my colleagues this October 21st at 2:05 p.m. to do the first in a series of virtual and in-person meetings discussing recommended changes for the Santa Maria transit system in response to the COVID pandemic. I'd like to start off by saying that pointing out that public transit is considered a lifeline service, as it helps ensure that the most vulnerable in our community have reliable and affordable transportation from their home to social services, educational centers, medical facilities, places of employment, grocery, commercial centers, and for social interactions. Public transit is very vital and important for our community. With that said, it's been well documented that the pandemic has had far-reaching consequences on many industries, and transit has been no exception. This has created the elimination of many school bus routes and has drastically impacted how parents get their children to school. Regular and frequent access to medical centers has never been more critical than today. Families and individuals have faced personal economic reversals, and employers are desperate for potential employees to re-enter the workforce. Transit will play a very vital role in aiding the community members weather social financial regression or start to regain upward financial and social mobility. These short-range transit plans help a transit agency shape its future. The City of Santa Maria contracted with consultant Moore & Associates to develop its initial update in 2019 and into 2020. However, since the onset of the pandemic, there have been some changes that the plan could not have anticipated. That has brought us to this meeting here, an addendum, an additional section to the original short-range transit plan, which will help us identify strategies and methods in mitigating the impacts of labor shortages and new demands on our transit system. With that said, the addendum has 5 key objectives. The first one is to create meaningful connections between neighborhoods, medical, educational, employment centers, which correspond to logical geographic-based travel patterns. What that means in short, it's highly rare that a person gets into their automobile, drives in the opposite direction of their intended destination to get into another automobile to finally drive in the direction they would like to go. Our desire is that transit mimic to as much as possible what a person would have done had they had an automobile. That's what we mean by meaningful connection between neighborhoods and these other facilities, medical, education, and employment centers, based on geographic travel patterns. We also wish to create routes that can better support local schools, particularly in high schools where we're seeing the biggest growth and demand. Now let me pause and say our objective is to better support local schools. We are not proposing that Santa Maria Transit be school bus service. However, where there is an opportunity that benefits our students and the rest of the community, seniors, disabled, and disenfranchised alike, we certainly should look into taking advantage of that. Where possible, we want to create routes that can better be met by the limited range of electric buses by creating shorter and more concise routing. This has other benefits besides future-proofing to our transition to electric buses. It also means that for many of our riders, because the routes have been shortened or made more concise, that single bus can come around more frequent versus the long 60-minute headways that we have in some of our routes today. We have a sincere desire to provide comparable or even better service with less personnel than we have or than what we have today. Many industries have faced a labor shortage. Transit has not been unaffected by that same shortage. We wish to avoid a situation where we cannot deliver on services, and that seems to be the case if we continue with the model we have today. So we need to get out ahead and address it. We want to create routes that are on headways and schedules that are more easily memorable by our rider and truly pulse in and out of our transit center. Right now, Santa Maria Transit posts 2 schedules per route, one for weekdays and one for weekends. Often, the differences are minor, but can be very consequential if you're a minute different depending on the schedule you use. We believe that there should be consistency for a rider so that what you do on Monday is the same you would do on Sunday, Saturday, and on a Thursday. Only one schedule to learn that connects with other schedules in our city. No more trickling in and out of our transit center. Rather, the bus you need will also be there when you get there. So we have those 5 key objectives, and that has been the backbone in the decision making in the recommendations. A lot of thought has gone into how we can better serve our community. We stay away from the change for the sake of change. We are changing with the very deliberate decision of helping those we know have been impacted by the pandemic and where we can make a better difference in our community. The plan is quite long, or the draft plan has recommendations for just about every route, and then that's an addendum to the short-range transit plan. In summary, the key features of the plan result in the following. A considerable effort was made in preserving existing bus stops as they are available today, or where we couldn't preserve the bus stop, to provide an acceptable location only a few feet away, in other words, around the corner. What that means for the vast majority of today's riders, if you use a certain bus stop, it is likely we're still going to serve that bus stop, but only on few exceptions, and we'll note those within the plan. And usually if we did delete a bus stop or propose deleting one, it's because we have good data supporting that that route or that stop was underutilized. Or if we did need to delete a bus stop, we put one around the corner as an acceptable alternative. With that, we've identified up to 25 additional locations where we can add access to transit. 25 additional bus stop locations where if you don't have one conveniently today, perhaps one of these additional 25 will be a better service to you because it'll be closer to your home or your intended destination. Consistency and reliability of service have been worked into the route alignments and the schedules. To us, a big priority is not only the safety, but of course the reliability of our service. That when you, as the rider, access your transit stop, that we'd be there more times than not, as we suggested that we would. There are a couple of changes to the span of service. Every route would now start its service at 6:30 a.m. as our data indicates that it's after this time that our service is its most productive. Most routes will have been worked so that they're on 45-minute frequency. I believe there's only one route that is the exception, and that one's on a 30-minute frequency. Schedules are now more concise and easier for the rider to digest. They'll be easier to understand and follow, easing the tension and the worries of whether you're reading the schedule correctly. Schedules should provide anywhere from 5 to about 10 minutes of recovery time on loop. What that means for you as a rider is our on-time performance will be 97% or better as we anticipate. Only a few exceptions will our buses be late, and if they are late, it would have been the same situations that as a driver you would have faced because of unforeseen road conditions. SMAT wants to become a true hub and spoke system. If you imagine a wheel, a bicycle wheel, where there's a hub in the middle, that would be our transit center. All our routes would then project into all corners of our community, but then return in a very coordinated way so that when you get off your bus at the transit center, your next connection is also there for you. And we do that with 45-minute routes that sync at the transit center. And we avoid the trickling in of buses out of the transit center. Weekend schedules are now consistent with weekday schedules, as I mentioned earlier. Drivers nor passengers need to learn 2 different schedules with minor differences. Again, what you did on Monday will be the same you do the rest of the week. 2 additional transfer points have been created, one at Merrill Gardens and Suey Lane on the north end of town, and another at the Crossroads Shopping Center, where we generally refer to as Walmart on the south end of town. These are locations where multiple routes serve the same bus stop, but again, with synced schedules that are cognizant of each other. So that in addition to the transit center, now on both the north and south end of town, you have other opportunities to transfer onto other routes. This reduces the need of someone living at one end of town needing to come all the way to the transit center in order to go back to the other side of town. Now you have additional opportunities. Our data shows that service should start winding down at about 8 p.m. And it's after this period the service is unproductive. Additionally, this change is critical because it makes for 14 hours of service with very little superfluous service and essential for Santa Maria Transit to address its labor shortage. These changes are anticipated to not only do more for our riders, but can be done with as many as 5 to 7 driver positions required. And let me be clear, we have no intention of anybody losing their job over this. But while we're short 10 positions, we no longer have to depend on filling perhaps as many as 7 of them in order for us to deliver full service. This again increases the reliability of our service for our rider. We're desperately trying to avoid a situation where there is absolutely no service to a route because we do not have the personnel. But in these changes, we hope that we can preserve comparable or even better service with fewer folks needed. There is a proposed fare change strategy within here. The idea of the strategy is to incentivize and motivate the rider to buy multi-trip passes instead of feeding the machine, the fare box, $1.50 at a time, which is part of the barriers to riding transit more. The recommendation that will be made to council is to maintain the base fare at $1.50 for now, but with time, particularly July 1, increase the fare to align with the fares on Breeze at $2. But before we get there, we will have introduced a one-day pass. This is a pass that gives you unlimited amount of rides within that period, whether 24 hours or that same day. That'll be priced at $3, basically the cost of today's two-way trip, $1.50 to go to your destination and $1.50 to come back. But the benefit of an all-day pass is should you need a third and a fourth trip, those trips were already paid for in your same $3. But as demand increases, we may need to also increase that pass to $3.50. That means that the all-day pass is still cheaper than paying the machine $2 on every trip. We also recommend introducing a 7-day pass strategically priced at $12 that with popularity, recovery of the economy may reach up to $15, which is still a discount over paying single fare trips at a time. We also believe that our community is not out of the woods yet when it comes to the COVID pandemic and its financial impacts. So we are recommending to council to extend or to introduce a temporary reduction of our 31-day pass from the current rate of $48 to $31 to be evaluated on an ongoing basis. Again, the idea is to help riders have access to transit on a more unlimited method versus the one trip at a time method that often creates a barrier. Here is a system map illustrating what we recommend in the short range transit plan. As you can see, most air services in their city have been preserved with very few exceptions. Those exceptions are because there's limited ridership there or because there is a strategic benefit to making a system change. We thank you for attending our October 21st, 2 p.m. meeting. This is again the first in a series of public workshops where we promote and explain the recommended addendum to our short range transit plan with route changes to address the COVID pandemic. A copy of the draft working papers are available for public review on the SMAT website at writesmat.com or in person at the Public Works Office at 110 South Pine Street, Suite 101, Santa Maria, California. We wish to encourage public comment and we receive that whether it be online at smatcomments@cityofsantamaria.org email address or by traditional mail at the address listed on your screen, which is 110 South Pine Street, Santa Maria, California. I want to also point out that it is important that we hear from all members of our community, particularly if you use Santa Maria Transit. We are recommending some changes that don't always appeal to non-transit riders. We honor and respect those opinions. But if the service is meant to help those who actually do ride the service, we need to hear from you as well on why a certain change would help you or it could be done in some other way. That way, we know to view those comments in light of each other. So again, thank you for attending our meeting, and we'll end the meeting here, and we'll have a conversation with those who are interested in discussing more at the end of this meeting. Thank you.